doing some weird thing. Oh, there we go. We are rolling.
There you
Welcome,
go.
Blaze V. I don't even know how to say your last name, but welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Nobody knows how to say it, so it's fine.
Okay, will you say it for me?
In Dutch, it's van de ploeg. So that basically
Okay.
means from the plow. And in English, it's just Vanderplug. So
Okay, cool, cool. Well, I have to just give a quick rundown of how I came across your channel, and I think you're going to have a really successful channel because you're like way out there on the fringe, yet you back everything with like all kinds of amazing science. So it's really, really fun to experience you. So my dad has cancer. Every time I see anything to do with cancer, I read it. And we've been able to take him from death's door to thriving. And he is literally only doing raw milk, raw goat milk, and keto. Couple of supplements, started working out. He has his ups and downs, but he was literally, they said, end of life. So because of that, I'm always like scanning because and if I see something, I'm like, okay, I want to find out about this. So I got this book called The 1 Minute Cure, and it's all about hydrogen peroxide and how you can literally slowly dose yourself up with distilled water, drink away from food and things that'll agitate the stomach, and you are going to increase oxygen. And it had this whole section in the book about using hydrogen peroxide for your teeth. And so then I started looking up stuff about teeth, and boom, Blaze popped up. And what does it say? It says, I haven't brushed my teeth in, and I think that it said something like 700 days or something. It was a long.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is the kind of stuff I like to know about. So I clicked on it and I watched your video, and I was absolutely amazed. And so then I just binge watched all of everything on your channel. So everything you have posted, I have watched, and I've really enjoyed it. So let's, if you don't mind, start at the beginning. You're in med school, right?
Yeah, I'll be there in about a year-ish or so. So,
Oh, okay.
but yeah.
Okay. Oh gosh, sorry about that. My phone just went off. And so that's what started you down this journey, right? Going to school for med school?
Sort of. It was a weird. Oh man. Okay. Originally, this actually starts at 6 years old, where I have a much better okay, this is a weird story. So originally this actually starts when I was 6 years old. I have a little bit of a concept of death, but not quite, because like I'm figuring out the world at that time, and I'm still young, and I still remember this memory. I still have it. And I remember my dad, he tells me, yeah, someday I'm gonna die, and I start like bursting into tears because I can't fathom it at that time. It like so it made me really sad. And then eventually that event got me towards trying to go down the path of longevity, or basically like trying to figure out how to live longer. But I didn't fully know much. I didn't learn much. There's so much information out there. I always heard like, oh, plants are really healthy for you. Plants are good for you. And I basically, I grew up my life vegetarian, to be honest, for the most part. And I had serious problems along the way. I had a lot of acne, a lot of acne, chest acne as well, cystic chest acne, and eczema on my back. That was also really bad. And I just, there's so many problems, like chronic fatigue as well. I would always get really tired. I'd have stomach problems all the time. I mean, I could go on and on about the list of problems that I had. And eventually I switched from my major, which was originally chemical engineering. And I went from chemical engineering into biology, or more biochemistry sort of. And that got me down the path of longevity more, because I understood a little bit more about the science, because I would take the chemistry that I learned from chemical engineering, and I would mix it with the biology that I learned, and then sort of things would come together a little more. I'd be like, oh, this is why this happens, or this is why that happens. And then that was probably about 2 years ago or so, 2 to 3 years ago. And it wasn't that big of a thing yet, because I didn't understand I didn't fully like throw myself down the rabbit hole of just spending 14 hours every day on the online on the YouTube trying to figure this stuff out, because the science isn't like clear, because one person says this, another person says this, and then another person says this, and I'm trying to figure out which one's right. And I would always experiment on myself at the time. I would say, like, you know what, we're just going for it, whatever. If they say this, let's see if it's true. So I do it. And I just kept repeating that until I ran into carnivore, or basically just eating only meat. And that really seemed to fix all my problems. Every single problem before then, like the acne that I have a video on before and after of my acne, and it was pretty bad. I wish I took pictures of my chest acne too, because it was basically just red, just giant red piece right there. In fact, my shirt's a little see-through, so you probably can't see it anymore. There might be like one red spot or two red spots there, but it was pretty bad. And my eczema on my back, it almost looked like there was craters on it. There was literally like meteorites that impacted it, just giant inflamed pieces. It was really, really bad. And after going carnivore for 2 years, now I wasn't full carnivore, but I definitely, I relapsed a couple times. So I ended up going from eating meat only, and then eventually eating chocolate, and then finding out that doesn't work, and I got really sick. So then I went, no, I'm not doing that again. So I went only meat, and then I tried ice cream after that, because I love ice cream. That didn't work. So I just went only meat. I was like, you know what, if I have to suffer every single time that I try to reintroduce something, then so be it. If I have to eat meat for the rest of my life, which I will, because I don't want to experience another inflammation problem, then so be it. I don't want to have to deal with that. And along the way, also, I ran into a couple of other places, people who, for instance, the person from Australia on my not showering video, he inspired me to try it. I said, you know what, might as well try it. Why not? So I went not showering for 4 years, and to this day, I don't know exactly how long it's been, but it's been way over 1,400 days by far, 100% on that. And not brushing my teeth, I ran into Dr. Mike Mew. He does something about orthotropics, and it's like how to fix your jawline to make you more attractive, as well as to improve. Yeah. So yeah, you probably definitely, he's been pretty popular on that. And he had some guest on. It was some lady, but I can't remember. And I remember her saying, yeah, pre-agro humans, before the agricultural revolution, they never had to brush their teeth. We didn't have toothbrushes. So I like got a little curious. I was like, what is this? Because I learned this around the same time that I learned carnivore. And I was like, does it really work? So I got really curious, and I said, you know what? We're going to see. Is it really true? Like, let's see if this whole carnivore thing is as good as it says it is. So I went all in, and honestly, I was sort of expecting to get a cavity. I was expecting at least one cavity within 1 year minimum. I was like, maybe it could reduce it, but I was expecting a cavity, and I got nothing. So that really shocked me. And I looked at that and I went, wow, I've been 1 year. Well, first I went 1 year without brushing my teeth. And then my parents asked me one day, hey, did you brush your teeth? Are you going to go brush your teeth before you go to bed? And I was like, did you not notice for the past year, I haven't brushed my teeth? So they got shocked by that. My dad wasn't as shocked, because I was sort of already experimenting on myself at the time. But my mom,
this is my goat man son.
Yeah, my mom, that was a different story. She got really, really panicked. She got really scared. So we went to the dentist after that, because she got really scared, and she's like, no, we need to see a dentist if you're really doing this. And we went to the dentist. I went to the dentist, and the dentist assistant, he, just to make sure that the dentist himself doesn't do a little cheating, the dentist assistant asked me, okay, a couple questions, and then eventually comes to the question of, when was the last time you brushed your teeth, or how often do you brush your teeth? And I went, I don't know. And I just kept dodging the question over and over and over again.
I'm not gonna let him pass the pop quiz.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's cheating. He's not supposed to know. So I said,
Quiz.
all right, let's see if he can guess it. So eventually the dentist assistant gets tired of me. It's like, whatever. I'm just gonna let the dentist deal with him. So dentist comes in and he's like, so I see you answered every question except how often do you brush your teeth? Why is that? And I was like, well, I was hoping you could tell me that one. And he goes, okay. So he looks at my teeth. He gives my teeth a glance for about 2 to 3 minutes. And he says, well, your teeth, for the most part, I can't see anything wrong right now. They look really, really healthy, actually. And there's no plaque buildup. And yeah, it looks pretty good. It looks like you brush every 1 to 2 days. And the moment I heard that, I went, oh, I got him. I knew I got him right there.
Oh my gosh, boys, that's hilarious. And so now, as a woman, like, girls were so like, oh gosh, we don't want to, date a guy with bad breath or, whatever. So like, okay, so like, I'll give you an example. Like, for people, like, I remember girls in California would go like months without washing hair, and they would go through this like crazy stage where it was really oily and bad, but over time, it would start to rebalance, and then their hair looked great. They would just rinse it off or whatever. And so curious if there was a stage that like happened where it was like, oh my god, what am I doing to myself? Like, it feels disgusting, until you got that microbiome going with enough anaerobic going, that I'm sure it just started doing the right things.
Yeah, for my teeth as well as for my hair. My hair originally, when I did it, I remember it was exactly like you said. I mean, the hair just got so unbelievably. It felt, I don't know if I'd call it damaged, but it felt like something was wrong. And then
Yeah.
after a certain amount of time, I can't remember if it was a month or 2 months exactly, but I remember it just stopped. And I had really long hair back at that time. I had hair all the way down to my
Yeah,
elbows,
your
basically.
pictures, like, yeah.
And I did absolutely nothing. And it confused me because I was always taught like I have to do this to make my hair look nice. And the main thing that I learned from showering is, for me anyways, if I want to make my hair look really, really curly, then all I have to do is put hot water on my hair and leave it there for maybe like 5 minutes. And then afterwards, I let it dry naturally, or let it air dry, basically. And it just starts curling like crazy. But otherwise, I don't do anything with my hair. So that was a really nice thing that I learned about the showering part. And then the not brushing the teeth part. I was when I went to the dentist, he did like a little scraping on the teeth to see if there was any plaque, and he couldn't find any. And he kept doing that for like every single tooth. And he's like, yeah, every tooth definitely feels pretty good. And I didn't really experience as much of a transition period with the not brushing my teeth, but that also could be because I knew a little bit about oxalates a little bit before I did carnivore. So I kind of knew like, oh, certain foods are really high in oxalates, and these seem to be like inflammatory markers. They can also act as like a quicker way to age. So that's another really big thing. 5 out of 9 of the primary causes of age are increased by oxalates, because they increase telomere. I mean, they decrease the telomere size. There's a list. I can't remember the exact 9, but after that, I was like, wow, this is really big. So I also added that in. So that could be a part, because oxalates are supposed to be around your teeth. They're supposed to accumulate in your salivary glands. And that's why you might have like a layer on your teeth. It could be oxalates.
So that layer that you feel before you brush your teeth, you don't feel it at all anymore?
Oh,
Like
no. It's
that
actually
filling?
always smooth. It's always smooth.
Wow.
It's so weird. I wasn't expecting this either, but it's always smooth. Even the back of my teeth, because I usually when I'm eat meat, sometimes it'll get like stuck in my tooth or something,
Right,
right?
sure.
Yeah, I'll fidget with my tongue and I'll like try to get it out over and over again. So I get a pretty good feeling of like how smooth or how rough my teeth are. And they're always smooth. It's just really weird to me anyways. Originally it was really weird, but now I just got used to it and I continue with it and it works. So
Wow. I've experimented. I definitely love medical rebels. I find them very interesting. I love to experiment on myself. I have friends who are doctors that experiment on themselves. They wouldn't ever do it on their clients or their patients. But it's I've tried coconut oil with turmeric, and I mean, my teeth felt like I had just gone to get cleaned at the dentist. Like they were so smooth and slick, and I was shocked. I was like, how in the world does that work? Of course, if anyone does it, be very careful because the turmeric will stain everything. So get a special toothbrush for it and do it over your kitchen sink, and don't wear anything nice because that coconut oil is just so slippery. And so I thought that was really interesting. My daughter turned me on to this oil that was a dental, like instead of a toothpaste, it was a tooth oil. And I could feel that feeling of it being so smooth. And I don't get that from just regular toothbrushing. And I've got the thing that, you go 2 minutes and the whole bit. And so, the difference, what I'm talking about.
yeah,
And
I
you're
know exactly
saying
what
that
you mean.
after a certain period of time, your microbiome in your mouth is so good that you have that slippery, like awesome, clean feeling in your mouth.
Yeah, it's really nice. I wasn't expecting it to be so smooth. In fact, I was expecting the after brushing my teeth, not brushing my teeth for like I don't know how long, that sort of feeling on your teeth, and it ended up not being that, and it really confused me because I was like, why is this like this? This isn't making much sense. So
Yeah, it's wild. And so if you go on a date, do you brush your teeth or like chew a mint, or I don't know? I know this is kind of personal, but you said I could ask whatever.
yeah, no, you can ask whatever. That's a good question. So when it comes to, I don't know how much I should go into my love life. Do you want me to go in terms of like intercourse as well? And
Or
I
is
mean,
this a
I'm fine with
microbiome
anything.
thing? Are we gonna talk about microbiome with sexual relations too?
There's definitely something there. I do know that because I
You
think
talk about whatever you want to talk about.
okay, so I guess we'll go with my dating life then. So when or if I choose to date somebody, I'm really, really picky. The first thing to say, I'm like really, overly picky. So I don't date anybody, but I don't just date anybody. But when it comes to women and actually like interacting with them or talking with them, they don't notice my breath. I would usually get a comment, and I don't get a comment, as well as the smell of me not showering. You would assume that I probably smell,
Right.
but I
This is my next question.
yeah. Exactly. They don't notice. I did have sex twice, actually more, way more, while not showering. Again, two different women, and neither of them knew. I didn't say anything, and they enjoyed the whole thing. We had a great time. So that was sort of the first time around, I was sort of like, oh, okay, I just started this, so maybe that's why she doesn't notice. And then the second time around, I was already 2 years, 3 years in, and she didn't notice. And we would like sit down on the Netflix and chill, literally. Like there's a couch.
This is so wild.
So
Like this is wild. And she went out with you more than once.
yes, definitely.
Yes.
She
See,
was
that's the true test.
probably she really, really liked me. The second one, yeah, she definitely really, really liked me. We spent a lot of time together. There was a lot of moments. You could sort of see the jealousy, like that other women would see me. Like I don't know if you know what I mean. The whole catty behavior might come out sometimes. So yeah, there was a lot of that, and you could really, really see it in her, or at least I could see it in her, because the way she would act in like whenever, for instance, I might talk to another girl because I need like answers for I don't know, I'm taking biology class and I'm like, hey, what were the answers that you got for this? I wasn't here. I showed up late, right? That sort of a thing. So just small things like that. And I interacted with plenty of other women as well, by the way. And when I had long hair, actually, this is a really interesting thing. When I had long hair, I had so many compliments from women on what do you do with your hair? I was always asked that. And I was asked that so much.
I live in a cave with goats and don't brush my teeth or shower. No, I'm kidding.
No,
That's
I know, right? I was so tempted to say some of this stuff too. I was really
Well, it's
tempted.
gotta be kind of weird because like you live in your own world that no one lives in. Like I don't know anyone. Of course, like you said, the one guy in Australia that you had on yours, but like I've really not heard of this. I've heard of people not eating, you know, breatharians or other things, but you're the first person that I've come across that doesn't brush his teeth. Now, knowing what you know as far as, you know, starting down this road of being into, you know, biology and chemistry and stuff, and I understand you're not, you know, a specialist of any sort, but you wouldn't recommend this if you're not carnivore, right?
Yes. That is the very first thing that I've noticed, because when I did these, I guess you could call relapses while I was on the carnivore thing, it's sort of like I could tell there's something wrong with my teeth. Like I could feel that thing build up when I ate chocolate or ice cream or whatever, and I did a little relapse, and I was like, "What is this?" So after that point, I was sort of like, okay, clearly there's something about meat, and I didn't originally know what it was at the time fully, but there was definitely
Right.
something about it, and I was like, I can't tell if it's just because like the pH is higher and like certain bacteria just can't live in that pH environment because of fatty acids, or I couldn't tell if it was because maybe there's like phytotoxins involved or some sort of phytotoxin. So definitely, I would say if anybody does try this, I highly recommend being carnivore first, because that was the only way that it worked for me successfully. I couldn't do this successfully without going carnivore. I couldn't even imagine the amount of cavities I would get from doing
Well,
this.
it's interesting because I have several friends, and we were talking about this years ago. And one of my friends had to get like all of her teeth redone, and she's like, I brush my teeth like 3 times a day, and I floss, and I use the water pick, and I do everything, and I just can't. Like, I just have cavities and cavities and cavities, and so it's fascinating to me to think back to she might have been able to recover her teeth and not had to get all veneers had she known, you know, that it's the saliva in your mouth, it's the film around the teeth, and if it's not the proper film protecting the enamel, then you're going to have an issue.
Yeah. Wow. Ooh, man, that sounds bad. Yeah, I probably would say, yeah, if it might have really helped her, because there's a lot of things. Some people, from what at least from what I'm aware of, some people basically have certain genetic triggers to some things, so they might not be able to make a certain enzyme as efficiently, or they might not be able to make some sort of a thing as efficiently, and because of that, they require even more than the normal person. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people with like autoimmune problems, for instance, that's all based on cholesterol, because all of these sex steroid hormones originate from cholesterol. So they are like a really good example of they need cholesterol because one reason or another, maybe it's an enzyme, maybe it's it could be really like any just a small little mutation is all it takes in the wrong spot, and when that happens, that person needs extra. They need more, because if they don't, they have like an immune reaction. That's not good. Like, you really don't want an
Right.
immune reaction.
When I was living in Colorado many moons ago, I went on a raw foods diet, and that included raw meat, raw everything. Like everything, spaghetti sauce was made in a blender. You don't heat it, like the whole bit. And one of the things that I remember the nutritionist that I was working with was sharing with me is that I'm so sorry. No, what's going on with me? One of the things that she was saying is like when you have, raw meat, you have the exact amount, nature has put in the perfect amount of enzymes to break down the meat naturally. And if we cook the meat, then we're taking away from the enzymes that actually help us break down the meat, which is interesting because like, do you eat like mostly like medium rare, or like what kind of like steak do you like?
I would. If anybody, I will do a cooking video eventually, and if anybody does see my steaks, they're almost still alive because they are very, very rare. They're
Yeah,
so rare to the point where the only thing that's cooked is maybe the outside, and the entire
seared.
middle of it is just completely red. It's like blood red, almost like it hasn't been touched. Sometimes it
Right,
depends on the steak. So some steaks or some parts I like more or less cooked.
right,
It's mostly like a taste thing for me in terms of, so specifically the fatty parts. The fatty parts sometimes I really like to cook them. Sometimes I don't like to cook them though.
yeah.
It's yeah, I just usually this sounds a little weird. Sometimes I might end up before I eat any of the meat in the first place, I'll just like take a little bit of it raw and eat it and see how it tastes. It's like,
You
oh,
get
do
the
I
hang
like
of
this?
it.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, do I like the taste of this? Do I not like the taste of this? And if
yeah,
I don't like the taste of it that much, then I'll be like, oh, okay, I won't eat as much of it. But just a really quick example today would be raw liver. I had liver there, and I was like, I had raw liver before. I think it was beef liver. I'll try it again. Let's see if this one tastes any different. So I tasted it, and I was like, oh, it's not that bad. And then I tried cooking it, and then I was like, it's overcooked. You could definitely tell it feels like I'm supposed to be eating this a little bit more towards the raw side because the cooked side didn't taste as good. So
right.
that's just an example.
Yeah,
But
you start training your palate for maybe naturally what you need. I don't know. Was it chicken livers or was it beef livers?
I'm pretty sure it was beef liver. It was definitely bigger. I would
Yes.
eat a lot of chicken. Oh my. When it comes to chicken, I eat a lot of chicken hearts sometimes. If that's ever available, that is one
Yeah.
of my favorite foods ever. I don't know why. It's just so
Yeah.
good. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so my daughter, she works with, have you ever heard of the Meat Mafia?
That sounds familiar. I feel like I
Yeah,
have.
they're big on Twitter, and they have a podcast called Meat Mafia, and they've interviewed a ton of people, a lot of carnivores, and she's hooked into that whole wellness crowd on Twitter, and I follow a lot of them, and several of them will just take ground beef and mix egg with it and some spices and literally just eat it raw. It's wild to me.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a little bit like what I did yesterday. I had some ground beef yesterday, and I chose not to cook some of it, and I was sort of happy I did because the not cooked ground beef can taste really, really good. But when you cook it too much, then it doesn't taste as good. So it is a palate thing, though. You are right. Like, for some
Yeah,
reason, your palate gets a really good sense of like, I really want the taste of this. I want more. I want more. And
right.
whenever before anyways, whenever I relapsed, it and I went, like, I might have had chocolate or ice cream, like the chocolate didn't taste the same. It didn't taste good. Like, I remember chocolate before used to taste so good. I was like so addicted to that taste. And now I was like, why doesn't this taste it? This is the exact same chocolate that I would eat and I liked it. And now
Right.
it didn't taste good anymore. So it sort
Yeah.
of was weird. Exact same thing with the ice cream as well. I tasted the ice cream and I was like, this ice cream just doesn't taste as good. Like, it's sweet, but I don't know if I like this kind of sweet. So
Yeah.
I think your palate really does give you a good sense of what your body needs at a certain point if you train it correctly. But if you don't
Yeah.
train it correctly, then for some reason it'll malfunction. I don't know if it's a phytotoxin that interferes with it. I don't know if it's the fact that the mitochondria are less efficient. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's definitely something there because you'll taste a really big difference after being long enough on carnivore. I don't. There, it's not. It's like I remember the feeling of eating chocolate, and I'm like, I don't really like that anymore. It just sort of like it's sort of
That is
weird.
so cool. Do you have sushi? Do you eat raw fish?
That's a good question. Raw salmon, I sometimes like. I really,
Mhm.
really like salmon sometimes. Sometimes I don't like it too much. It's usually again, it's like a taste thing. So you sort of get a taste and
Sure.
you eat it one day, and then maybe the next day you like it, but you don't like it as much. And if you try to have it
Sure.
on the, yeah, you try to have it on the third day, and you're like, I don't know if I
Yeah.
like that. So
That's more like a mixture of carnivore and intuitive eating in a way. My daughter's really into intuitive eating, and she's gotten to the point where she can trust, what her palate is telling her she needs, which I think is really cool. But she does shower. So tell me this: was the showering the same as the brush teeth thing, or the teeth brushing and the hair, where you went through a time, like a little bit of a time loop of like not being like smelling so good, and then all of a sudden it started like working?
I do remember at the very beginning. I think at the very beginning when I stopped brushing my teeth, I think I remember like there was something on the front of my teeth, and it wouldn't like scrape off, or sometimes it would scrape off. It was like this white, obviously, it was like white plaque. It wasn't
Right.
calcified, so
Sure.
at least it wasn't there for a while. But there was definitely something there. So I thought like, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is going to continue to occur. But my assumption, based on what I learned now, anyways, from 2 years ago, is it was probably some form of oxalate buildup or something like that, because I'm assuming that it has to be something related to oxalate being concentrated in the salivary glands, and then eventually, obviously, because your teeth are like surrounded by that stuff, it just it accumulates over your teeth. I I do remember doing like a little bit of like testing on each of my teeth, where I would like take my nail and I'd like scrape a
Yeah.
little bit off and see if there's anything there. And usually I would get like some very, very small white plaque, like really, really small amounts, if not even noticeable at all. It almost looked like it
Wow.
was spit rather than actual plaque. So
Right.
I would assume that it probably there was a similar phase, definitely, when in terms of the showering thing. So I would say it might have to be microbiome based as well. It could be microbiome based. It could be oxalate
Right.
based. It could be glucose based, starch based. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I wish the science was more clear, but
Well, this is what you were built for,
yeah.
the love of a father is how it all started when you were 6 years old. I think that's so cute. And somebody in the chat by the name of Kathy, who I love, she's asking, do you use a tongue scraper?
I use nothing at all. No tongue scraper. If you look at my in fact, I don't even know if I could bring the camera there without it falling apart. But yeah, if you look at my bathroom, the only thing there is in there is toilet paper
Razor blade.
and yeah, and that's it. That's basically it. Nothing else. There's a sink, right? There's a sink to sometimes wash my hands. I'm really picky about washing my hands as well. I try not to wash it as much. Um,
Right. Oh yeah, like if you're cooking and you get some oil on them or something, and you'll just
y-
rub it in.
I rub it all in.
Look, I need some oil. Woo. Um, and um, the showering piece, what about like, are you anti-swimming? Like, will you not go in a pool? Will you not go in a lake? Or is that totally different? Like, you just jump right in?
For me, it mostly depends on the water contamination. I'm really picky about water. So if it depends on if there's microplastics in the water, PFAS in the water. Technically speaking, it's not actually a plastic, it's a polymer, but I mean, you call them a microplastic because they have estrogen activating properties, or at least that's what I do at this point, because it's just like there's so many of them that phytoestrogens, like whatever, they're the same thing. They're from plants and they do the same thing. So when it comes to water, I'm really picky. I try to avoid microplastics. I try to avoid if there's any sort of contamination, because I do know that there's a lot of contamination in water. It might not be microplastic necessarily. It could be heavy metal based, because maybe the pipes are worn down. It could be because of, I mean, there's like so many reasons, like a chemical spill happens and a company tries to cover it up. Like there's plenty of things that happen. So I'm really picky with that. And when it comes to swimming, I don't like to swim in chlorinated pools. I usually avoid like pools completely because they're chlorinated. If they're not chlorinated, then I might. I actually definitely would think about that. When it comes to like if I were to go into a lake, for instance, I probably wouldn't mind. I'd just be careful about the water. I would see like where does this water originate from? Were there
Right.
any spills that happened there maybe? Because I do know that there's a lot of spills that happen, and they aren't
Yeah.
always so public. So I try to.
Yeah, there's groundwater contamination is a huge. So my ex and I started a company that was an environmental company. So I'm really aware of all this stuff. And one of the things that's really sad about this is the water treatment centers don't test for that.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
comes right back around. They test for other things. They don't test for that. And so all of the plastics are coming back. And so what do you do? So an ocean, you'll jump in the ocean?
Yeah, I would jump in the ocean. I'd probably jump in the ocean. I wouldn't mind. I don't think there's the contamination is definitely, I mean, it's there's no question that there's a lot of plastic in the ocean. I mean, there's a lot of plastic in the ocean, but I think the ocean's so
So
big.
big. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like unbelievably massive that there are some things in the world that we have no idea of, and then we just see it in the ocean. Like for instance, there's a barracuda, like the biggest barracuda ever. Usually barracudas aren't that big, and I think the biggest barracuda ever was like 7-8 feet tall or something. Like it was really tall. It was basically like taller than me, and I look at that and I'm like, whoa, like that's insane. Because I had a
Right.
barracuda hit me in the face before when I was snorkeling. That was
Yeah.
a really crazy experience, and I got to see a little bit of it, of like how big it was and all that.
Yeah.
But man, like 7 or 8 feet, like just it
Yeah,
really makes me
there's
wonder
some
what.
big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've jumped in and not realized there was one right next to me. And I'm like, oh, I think I'll get out. And so are you studying microbiome? Is that one of the things that you have found yourself going down a rabbit trail, like for not just your mouth, your skin, your hair, but like your gut?
So in terms of the microbiome, I would say my specific expertise would probably be more so leaning towards biochemistry or endocrinology. But that still, you could still apply it to the microbiome, because the microbiome, for instance, like a bacteria might produce an off product, right? And then that off product it will almost always be related to biochemistry in some way, shape, or form, or it could even be related to endocrinology. So there's a lot of mixing. So I wouldn't necessarily say I know the specific bacteria. I do know a couple of them. I like Helicobacter pylori or something like that, but I don't know the exact bacteria. I mostly know what the off products would probably be, how the body processes certain fuel sources. So it could be like fatty acid versus glucose. It could be that specifically goes into glycolysis and gluconeogenesis. I'll apply some of the things that I know from chemistry and that I learned from chemical engineering into biology as well. So, for instance, there's a really popular thing, or like a really big thing in chemistry, and it's called collision theory, and it's how molecules react. And it's really, really important because it's sort of weird. You could kind of apply collision theory to everything in life. I don't know why you can, but you can. So you can apply this to it's really weird. You can apply this to relationships, like of people, and for some reason it will all make sense, and it's kind of scary because all you have to do is put a little bit of human nuance there instead of a chemical nuance of like
Yeah.
you put a human nuance and you're like, what on earth? Why is this explaining this? This is so weird to me.
The
So
law of correspondence. And that's what I believe is true about physics as well. Pretty much
yeah,
any concept that's a fact in physics, you can apply it with people.
yeah.
It's crazy cool.
It's so
Uh,
some of this stuff is just weird.
so collision theory, like you were talking about in one of your videos, oxygen. Oh, was it it was like a 3-part term, oxygen something, and it was like where oxygen was bad rather than good.
Oh,
So
Oh, you might mean lipid peroxidation.
I don't.
Is it
I thought you said oxygenated.
Oh, reactive
Some.
oxygen species.
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
that's it. And so, can you explain that to me? It's going to be selfish for a quick second here.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot that we could go into. So, for instance, one of the cool things here could be one thing. So your turmeric thing, right, for your teeth, you talked about
Yeah.
that, and I sort of thought about that, and I go, well, why might that work? And I looked at that, and I go, well, there is one thing that I do know about turmeric, and it has a phytotoxin, and its phytotoxin actually produces more reactive oxygen species. In fact, they use that phytotoxin in chemotherapy. So that's what they do to kill cells. It also kills cancer cells, but it kills like every cell basically, right? It's for the most part basically kills every cell. So I looked at that and I went, oh, okay. So most likely, from my assumption, there was basically you were generating reactive oxygen species on your teeth, which end up killing this bacteria that is causing like maybe cavity, or it's just tons of this plaque, right? That sort of a thing. So I looked at that and went, oh, okay, that might make more sense. But in terms of reactive oxygen species and how they work, so originally it starts from hydrogen peroxide, usually anyways. A hydrogen peroxide is made, and then after a hydrogen peroxide is made, a OH or a hydroxyl group with one electron free, which is why it's called free radical, will end up attacking anything. It could attack literally anything. That's sort of why it's bad. And when it attacks some things are a little bit more damaging than others. So if it attacks the membrane of a cell, right, and the cell membrane takes too much damage from that, then the cell membrane could lyse. And if that's maybe not a red blood cell, that's not as big of a deal, but it's still sort of bad because you're killing a cell and you're causing necrosis, and necrosis causes inflammatory factors. And I mean, cell signaling is so complicated that it sort of amazes me how unbelievably interlinked the body is, because it'll get like, all it takes is one little stimulus and it goes, oh, okay, now we need to react this way. Oh, we need to react this way. So whenever you take a supplement or something like that, there's also like, even though it might do as the intended purpose, there also are some side effects, which usually are what side effects are. It interferes with some other things in the cell signal, because it's all really well balanced and really well regulated. And when that happens and you have a problem with your cell signaling, you'll have side effects. You'll definitely feel symptoms of some sort. I mean, it could be like nausea. It could be small things as well. You might not even feel the symptoms. It might be like damaging something inside of your body. It might be damaging, maybe increasing the rate of cancerous cells, or increasing the rate of. So there's plenty of things, but yeah, it's a really complicated and
the reason I was
thing.
like really toward into that, and this was after I was already like, oh my God, I want to interview him because this is fascinating that he doesn't shower or brush his teeth or wash his hair. And he looks perfectly fine to me. I mean, I'm not smelling you, but and so I heard you talking about these reactive oxygen species. And the reason it was interesting to me was because you used the word hydrogen peroxide. Well, the whole reason I was checking into you is because of the 1 minute cure, and how putting 3% food grade hydrogen peroxide into water at certain doses at certain times away from food and all this stuff is supposed to oxygenate the blood and give any anaerobic a boost, and any
I know what you
anaerobic.
mean. I
Wait,
know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah.
aerobic and anaerobic. Sorry. And so it will attack or kill anything that's bad. And it wasn't until this book that I read that even mother's milk, when a mom nurses, hydrogen peroxide is one of the things in the milk, which blew my mind. And so I was curious what your thoughts were, just intuitively. I know you haven't read the book, but of somebody drinking, 3 drops of hydrogen peroxide in 6 to 8 ounces of distilled water. It has to be away from minerals, vitamin C, and fat. Just pop quiz for you.
So if you were to add hydrogen peroxide, I mean, there are a lot of off products that you can get from hydrogen peroxide. One of them like could be oxygen. So if this were the case, then I could definitely see this killing the anaerobic cycle, or any sort of mitochondria going through oxidative phosphorylation in that sense, or something like that, because what would end up happening is you're forcing. So anaerobic basically is like you don't, or whatever that thing isn't using oxygen during its process for generating energy, which you can generate energy like that still, but you do end up sort of running into some problems. In the human body, I'm not going to explain that. Actually, that's like way more complicated because CO2 is a
Yeah.
real buildup. But yeah. So, oh man. So yeah, you could if there were hydrogen peroxide in the milk, that would probably, it would stimulate, from what it sounds like to me, it would stimulate the rate of aging potentially, because we do know reactive oxygen species does increase age, but at the same time of stimulating the rate of aging, it most likely would also provide more oxygen, which allows for more oxygen respiration of the mitochondria. So that means the mitochondria can use more oxygen. If there isn't already enough, which from the sounds of it anyways, if there is hydrogen peroxide in milk, then it sounds like there isn't enough oxygen that the baby needs or is getting.
Right.
So that's sort
Right.
of interesting to me. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know that, but I could.
I would love for you to read that book. I'll even buy it for you and send it to you on Audible, because it's only 2.5 hours long. But I would love to come back with you if you're open to it, and kind of like discuss what your thoughts are coming from, the chemical background, and any ways that you can get down any rabbit hole with that, because it fascinated me, and there's so many amazing stories, that really great success stories with this. Now, in the book, and you'll see if you read it, it talks about 35% food grade, and starting with 3 drops and going all the way until you get to 23 drops a day, 3 times a day, and then you back it down, but that you stay on a maintenance, because apparently, because of all of the ways that we're getting attacked with food and water and air and all this stuff, that we absolutely need that extra oxygen. And I didn't realize that they actually do give IVs in hospitals in some cases to help oxygenate people's blood. And there were a few other things that were just fascinating. So I would just love to get your brain on it.
Yeah, no, I probably would be interested in audiobook. I mean, yeah, I'm always down for learning. I like most of my free time, I'll spend learning, or I'll spend doing YouTube, or the other one, which is video games. Yes, I
Yeah.
do a lot of video
Yeah,
games.
for anyone that has young kids into League of Legends, or people that love that, another really cool benefit of carnivore is, go ahead and share with them your story
Oh, which one? Which one? There's plenty.
about the video games.
Oh yeah. Okay. So when it comes to video games, I wasn't expecting this necessarily at first, again, but I was like, at that time, I was so obsessed with getting Challenger in League of Legends, and League of Legends is this game that it has like 10 million people or something, or 100 million people. I can't remember how many people in the United States, anyways, who play this game. Really popular game, really difficult game because the competition's high, and there's a lot of people who play it. And it's same thing in Europe, same thing in Korea, same thing in China. There's plenty of other places. And I wanted to get Challenger, which is top 300 in my region. And I ended up getting even better than Challenger originally, not even top 300. I ended up getting ranked 27. And that was all on Carnivore. I was all of that was on Carnivore. And before, I could never reach Challenger. I was always like so close, but I just couldn't get there. I was always like Grandmaster, or like a really high Grandmaster, which is not exactly top 300. It was like around rank 320, maybe 340, but not there. And I end up going Carnivore, and it changes. I go from rank 340 to 320 to about rank 200 or 107. And then the next time I try and I say, you know what, I'm going for this again. I want to get Challenger. I want to get high Challenger. And I got instead ranked 27, and that was crazy to me, because at that time I probably could have even gotten rank 1, just looking at how efficient my brain was functioning, everything was working so well. My mind was so clear. I wasn't ever tired. I wasn't ever like, that sort of like, I don't know if I'd call ADHD feeling, but that
Yeah,
feeling where you
we
like
can.
lose focus, or
Yeah,
and your mind kind of just like drifts off, like that never happened. And my mind was always able to focus, like stay clear on what I was doing. And it was really amazing. And with that, it helped because I mean, I just blew away the competition. It wasn't even close. I was climbing really quickly. And the only thing that probably stopped me from getting rank 1 was the fact that I was going to Korea the the very next day. So if I had more time, if I probably had 3-4 more days, I most likely would have been able to get rank 1 at that point, and I would have been really happy. But now,
yeah,
I mean, I'm going to try again, obviously, sometime, but I'm not. Man, the amount of effort that you have to put in is very
yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah. Well, that's what my son said. He's very respected. When I told him about what level you're, he's like, man, just to get to grandmaster is just amazing. And so the only other thing I would love to share before you go, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, is the acne piece. This is something that you actually have a video on your YouTube channel, which I have down there on the thing, and it's just Blaze V. You have an entire video just on the cure for acne. Like literally you're calling it out like this will cure it. And I think about so many young kids and how they really are eating junk, Mountain Dew and like, the stuff. Share that story and how long it took and all that.
Yeah, so that was a really big shock to me as well. I wasn't expecting it to cure my acne, but it ended up working really well. And I came to some conclusions as to why. It most likely has to do with inflammatory markers. But for the most part, I'll just start with my story. So my acne started to appear around the time of puberty, which obviously is the exact same thing for many kids. So that sort of makes me question what exactly is the cause. And I think it has to do with phytoestrogens and some sort of hormone signal or hormone blocker or something that interacts with steroid hormones that we have. And those kids who get it during puberty is because, most likely anyways, I think it's because of that. And it works. The reason why carnivore works so well for acne and just any sort of almost any problem basically, but specifically
Right,
acne, is because you're reducing so many markers that we already know. Like there are we don't know the exact science behind why all this happens, but we know some markers or some things that are related to acne, like DHT, right? And where does DHT come from? DHT originates from cholesterol. And why exactly might DHT be malfunction or out of flux with all the other
right.
hormones? Well, it could be because you're having some sort of thing that acts like cholesterol but doesn't actually perform the same function. So it could be some sort of a plant phytotoxin like phytoestrogen, I mean, there's so many things that it's just, you look at it and you go like, this works for acne. Like this does work for acne. And I was one of the best examples because I tested on myself so much to get rid of this acne. I feel like I've literally tried everything. I tried like coconut oil on my face. I tried lard and tallow on my face. I tried this benzoyl peroxide cream. I could go on and on and on. I mean, I tried so many things. I tried the scrubbing, washing stuff when I didn't when I still showered. I tried there's just every single thing, like skincare product, this after that, and that. Nothing was working. And it bothered me because all it would do is it would slowly get rid of it and then it would just appear back again. So I was clearly like, there's something's going on and it's on the inside of me. Something's
That's
wrong
what I was just
inside of
gonna
me.
say. It's not on the outside, it's on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I have to cure the root cause of the problem. I can't be a symptom fixer, because if it's just another symptom fixer, all it's going to do is going to fix the symptom. Oh, wait, you have the root cause of the problem again. Root cause forces it right back out there. So, and I end up getting acne. So I looked at that, and that was my moment where I was like, it's on the inside. I need to do something on the inside. But I still didn't have much clue at that time, because all I knew DHT was involved, but they all said, oh, it's an overproduction of DHT, or oh, it's this or it's that. And I was like, well, if it's an overproduction of DHT, how do we know that it's not an overproduction relative to some other hormone? Or how do we not know? Like, we don't know all these details. So I said, like, you know what, whatever, let's go carnivore. I mean, this carnivore thing, everybody says carnivore is working so well, whatever, we're going to see if this really works. And I tried it, and it got rid of so much of my acne so quickly. It's occasionally I'll get maybe 1 or 2 spots, but for the most part, it's almost completely gone. And I think it has to do with these phytotoxins still just lingering around there. It's this phytoestrogen, or it could even be a microplastic. It binds to sex hormone binding globulin. It makes it that part inactive, and screws up with how free testosterone, free estrogen are in the body, as well as it's this whole cycle. So I think it's a slow. It'll eventually all go away, but yeah.
Well, it's so cool. So for people who just know here, you basically got rid of your acne within how many weeks of starting carnivore?
Oh, okay. So my cystic chest acne. Oh man, there's so many. Okay, so my cystic chest acne first. My cystic
There's
chest
different
acne.
timelines for different
Yeah, there's a
areas of the
different
body.
timeline for each one of them. So it depends. But for my cystic chest acne, anyways, when that was really, really bad, that probably lasted about, I would say, a year and a half. That was probably my worst by far. When it comes to my facial acne, though, I mean, that went away most likely within, I would say, anywhere 12 months to 3 months. I saw noticeable improvements within 1 month, but it wasn't like like there was still stuff. Yeah, I would still get some stuff coming out, right? So anytime I have acne now, if there is any sort of acne, which I barely have any, usually it's not even an acne spot anymore. It's not actually like a literal pore being inflamed. It's actually just like I feel my skin. I feel that there's a bump. Yeah, there's like some sort of a bump, and all I do is I just like slowly like squeeze the bump, and I could see like it's not inflamed anymore. So that means that I'm doing something good with the inflammatory marker, but there's still acne there. So yeah, that was a really big. That was a really
And for anyone that's interested, this is another one of his videos. You know, there's the tooth, the shower, and then the acne. The acne one, he does show before and after pictures. He shows before pictures, and of course you can see the after right here. But it's just amazing. Before you go, can I ask you a couple of questions that somebody asked in here?
Yeah, as many questions as you want.
Okay. So the first one is, do you know of any particular condition that somebody could have that they should not do carnivore?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I might say you could be more susceptible to more meats. So for instance, you might be more susceptible to the fat that's in pork versus the fat that's in beef. But if there's any condition that would prevent carnivore, unless you're allergic to fatty acid carnitine, you're not allergic to carnitine, because if you were, you would be dead. If you're so there's a lot of
You gotta connect with my daughter's buddies, the Meat Mafia guys.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Actually, I'm sort of interested.
They're doing a conference in Nashville. If you can get away, it would be really worth going to. But they had a panel last year where they had everyone on the panel had some disease. They didn't even realize it. Like, they just grabbed people that were pro carnivore to be on the thing, and then all these people are like, oh, I cured myself of this, I cured myself of that, like cancer, all kinds of stuff. It was really, really cool. And then the next question that somebody had was, is there any truth about eating a blood type? I've heard some blood types should have veggies and not so much meat. I've never done that type of diet, though.
No, not that I'm definitely not aware of. I don't think there's too many factors that are guaranteed to happen with plants that don't happen with animals. So just like a really quick example would be glucose. You obviously, when it comes to glucose and you look at glucose versus fatty acid, if you compare the structures, the structure of glucose is far more unstable. It's a ring, and it could also end up becoming like a straight line. And when it becomes that straight line, it causes problems. It wreaks havoc. And that's why your blood glucose levels are always have to be so tightly regulated, because if it's not, you end up damaging your endothelium, and that basically could damage your lymph system in the process as well. So your immune system, it could damage your arteries. Like it literally, that's the biggest part probably, is damaging your arteries. It could, in the process, if reactive oxygen species from the glucose are attacking red blood cells, it could cause bilirubin, which causes damage to hepatocytes. Basically, that's where heme binds to hepatocytes and causes and gives a process off product of bilirubin. And bilirubin's this yellow stuff, so you'll have like jaundice in your eyes or yellow skin. Like you don't want yellow eyes, yellow skin, right? So that's alone just from plants. That's not including the other things like the phytotoxins and the inflammatory markers. So the inflammatory markers, I mean, I recently came up with a video on that, and that is it's sort of scary to know that basically every time you're eating plants, you're doing a microdose of chemotherapy every time. Because all of these, like if you look at solanine, for instance, solanine is found in like tomatoes, potatoes, and you could look up all the fruits or vegetables that have solanine in them. And solanine is used as a chemotherapy drug. So the exact same thing with quercetin. I think it was called quercetin. And this is also used as a chemotherapy drug. And these all are derived from plants. They originate from plants. So they get them from plants. And every time you're eating like a tomato or a potato, the way I see it anyways, when I looked at it back then, I was like, why am I feeling so bad? Well, one of the reasons could be because my mitochondria weren't functioning as well, but it could also be I was literally like giving myself a microdose of chemotherapy every single time. So it's absolutely crazy. Like to me, that blew my mind.
Do you drink alcohol, or have you drank alcohol before you were carnivore?
I did drink alcohol before I was carnivore, and my favorite alcohol was called Mozart, which is a chocolate kind of alcohol. but after carnivore, I never touched alcohol ever again. Carnivore.
And so did you have the appetite for it, or was it a choice that you just were, I'm done with it?
Ooh, I was sort of just done with it at that point, because I liked the taste of alcohol, but I didn't necessarily like the feeling, because I was already, whenever I hung out with friends before and they would all drink alcohol, before they would even start drinking the alcohol in the first place, they were like, is this guy already drinking? Or like, why is he like so like, why is this guy so cool? Or like, whatever this guy has, I want some more of it. Like, please give me some. Give me whatever this guy has. So,
oh, that's so cute. Your parents are lucky to have such a high spirit in their life.
So, I mean, I never had any social reasons to drink alcohol. It was mostly sort of a thing of like, do I like the taste or not? I tried vodka before. Vodka was like, ooh, man, that was rough. But Mozart was my favorite one, and that was just because it tasted like chocolate. It was basically just a sort of chocolate liquor more than it was more chocolate than it was liquor itself. So
you really were a chocolate. And so let's see, is he running into any issues with the way they are messing with our meats? So that's a huge thing that Meat Mafia talks about all the time. And they always say, like, you should always know your local rancher, your local farmer. You should go to farmers markets and get your meats from there. As picky as you are about water, I would imagine you're the same way with your food.
With my meat, yeah. I'm pretty if I ever go to a grocery store, or if I go anywhere like that, if I do, which by the way, I almost never do because I can't even like eat 99% of the things there. But if I do, I look always at the back of that label, because I'm looking at that back of that label and I'm making sure there isn't any sort of thing that they add, because I know that it's so common to add so many of these preservatives, which they might say, oh, it's nitrate free. But if you look at like, they'll do that for bacon, for instance. But if you look at the back of it, they'll say celery powder. Celery powder is just a more concentrated form of nitrate. It's basically the exact same thing, except even stronger. So it's sort of,
I never knew that.
yeah, exactly. So
Well,
I
that's
looked
like
at
I didn't
that.
know cellulose, or what do they call it? Cellulose that's in shredded cheese. It's like literally wood pulp. Like
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Oh, I
yes,
know exactly what you're talking about.
crazy.
I can't
And
remember the
so I
name
do
though.
not get shredded cheese ever anymore. I only get raw cheese, and I shred it myself. And then what was another? So you are particular about that, and you like for your meat, or you go to a wherever you go.
So I tried so first, obviously, if like you can know your rancher, that would be good. Or whoever, like obviously buy it from your farmer, preferably anyways. For me anyways, I would prefer that. But in my current situation where I am, that whole thing is sort of difficult to do. I'm in California and I'm surrounded by a lot of almond places, not by meat places as much. So
Right.
I mean, they are having a far. The nice thing is that soon they will be opening up a doing a farmers market sort of thing over
The
here,
summer.
I think, which is nice. So I'm happy
Yeah.
about that. But it's for me, it's really difficult. So I order mine from man, what was the name? So I think there's a
Right.
couple of them. I think
Yeah.
Snake River Farms is one of them. I can't remember.
Okay.
Uh, I'm
And so you
pretty.
get the boxes that are delivered monthly, or like a subscription or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. And
Okay.
I prefer they also have like certificates with all of these things for some reason. I don't know why. They'll literally give you a certificate. It's like this is Wagyu made in America or something like that. This is
Right.
A3 Wagyu. So
Right.
yeah, but for the most part I try anyways to avoid any sort of antibiotics added to the meat, or the really poor practices of farming.
Or grain
Uh,
finished. You like the grass-fed finished?
yeah, I prefer grass finished. Grain finished is more, it has a less gamey sort of taste. That's the best way I could put it. I don't know how else to
Yeah.
put it, but
Less
yeah,
real taste. Less real
yeah, a
taste.
less real taste. There you go.
One of the craziest things I've seen recently, and I don't remember which doctor on YouTube where I'd give him credit, but it was one of the doctors that was sharing a vegan's placenta and a carnivore placenta after the
Yes,
baby
I
was born.
remember that. Yes, I definitely
One of them
remember
looks
that.
like one of them looks like old ground beef that's like doesn't have enough meat in it, and the other one looks like a bright red liver. Like it's crazy how you can literally see the difference.
Yeah, one is way more calcified than the other. I think I'm pretty sure that was Paul Saladino. I think that was Paul
Yes,
Saladino.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
yeah,
was. That
yeah.
is who
I
it was.
definitely remember
Thank you.
that.
We have to give him credit 'cause that was amazing.
That was
That
really
was one
cool.
of the
I'm really glad he did that because that, in my opinion, that's just another. That's why, sort of, why I'm really picky, or why I'm even more picky now than I was before, was because I want to find like a woman who's carnivore. Because after learning that and a couple of these other things, I look at it and I go like, that baby is bound to have a DNA mutation somewhere, and that DNA mutation, if it's in the wrong place, all it takes is
yeah,
one wrong place, and that baby ends up growing. It could end up growing with like an extra hand. It could end up growing with like some sort of
yeah,
really strong allergic reaction. It could be, I mean, and I look at that and I'm like,
yeah,
I don't want that for my kid.
yeah,
I'm,
good.
yeah.
I love
So
it. And then I've even seen recent stuff where they have little babies, like they're just like a year old, and they have them gnawing on the bone, just like, sucking on it and stuff. And I'm like, I love that. That's so cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think the teething, Mike Mew actually talks about that teething.
who does?
Babies do teething. Yeah. And that's, I think you're actually supposed to give them a bone to teeth on because they're supposed to develop the jaw and the muscles in their
Right.
mouth. And that's what makes them, one, more attractive, and two, it makes their like not have malocclusion, be able to breathe through their nose better. I mean, there's so many benefits to it. So not only are you probably preventing your kid from getting extremely bullied in school in the process, because there is
Look like a
plenty of times.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, do you have any concerns about parasites when that was the last question, when dealing with like more of the raw meat?
I have not currently run into any parasites that I'm aware of. I do definitely eat meat, quite a bit of meat raw, and I haven't ran into any parasites. I'm
So the concern is zero.
for me anyways, it's zero. I mean,
Concern.
I
Yeah.
haven't run into one yet, so maybe it's just like a matter of time, but I doubt it. I've been doing this for around 2 years. I've even eaten raw meat way longer, but way far before then. And from my experience, as long as if the pH of your stomach is pretty high and you're basically full carnivore, whatever goes to your stomach is really difficult. To anything that lives is most likely
Absolutely.
going to die
Absolutely. And you're
because
not getting the help of the enzymes. You know,
yeah.
it's a natural process. Well, and I remember too when I was doing the raw food stuff, they had us soaking everything because literally every nut, every seed has an inhibitor, and if you don't get rid of the inhibitor by soaking it off, then it
Yeah.
is a carcinogen. Which I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't realize that if you're eating a nut, then you're eating a carcinogen, and a lot of people are trying not to, do that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, a lot of these phytotoxins, what they'll do, like for instance, the glycosanic cyanides, I think there is what the name for them. When you apply mechanical stress to that seed, which basically means an animal chewing it, right? It releases cyanide, and no amount of cyanide is good. You never want any cyanide. There's no healthy dose. There's not even a little bit, not even a tiny little bit. You never want cyanide because cyanide it binds to cytochrome C oxidase. And once that happens, oxidative phosphorylation just stops for that cell, and people die because of cyanide poisoning. I mean, it's a common sort of poisoning thing. So yeah, you
right.
definitely don't want that.
Yeah. Well, the one last thing I was going to say, what was it? There's something else. Well, in the meantime, can you tell everybody where they can find you if they
Yes.
would like to follow you?
So if you're interested, my name is @BlazeV on YouTube. I'm the kid who, if you type my name up, you'll see me looking like, or something like that. I think I'm giving that face. It's either this direction or this direction. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm giving one of those faces. And I'm looking straight, and I'm also in a white shirt like this in that picture. And if you click on my channel, you'll find me. You'll find all my videos. I talk about a lot of things besides just carnivore. I try to link everything to science in the end whenever I can. I talked about acne. I talked about a more general sense of carnivore, which is my part 1 carnivore video, a specific related to the biochemistry behind why carnivore works so well in my second video of my part 2. And my part 3 is going to be the phytotoxin video, which I eventually will release. And that's where a lot of these plants are very similar to chemotherapy, like microdoses of chemotherapy, because they use them in chemotherapy all the time. I also talk about maybe like thought-provoking things. So it might be like why carnivore, I think anyways, is bound to happen, or based on the current circumstances, it's most likely bound to happen because CO2 isn't bad, but the up and down cycle is messed up. So there's supposed to be 16 gigatons, I think, up, 16 gigatons down, and now it's more like 18 or 20 gigatons up, and then 14 gigatons down. So it's not the same thing. There's a lot of it's basically all science or thought-provoking videos. I'll eventually also be coming out with some videos on my cooking and like my lifestyle of what I do. Obviously, I have the not showering and not brushing my teeth video. That's how you found
Right.
me.
Here I am not getting in my shower. Well, speaking of that, that was my question. I was like, I was going to ask him something. Would you date a girl that didn't shower, didn't brush her teeth, and didn't shampoo her hair?
100%. I would
Yeah.
100% date that. I don't know who that girl is, but if they're out there, I
You're
want
not
them right.
handsome.
I would very much like to meet them right now because that amazes me. You're going off. There's a couple things, but being able to defy social norms, or being able
Yeah.
to step outside that boundary and be like, I don't care what other people think. That's a really
Yes.
rare quality. You don't see that too often. And if I see that, I go like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would probably be
Yeah. They
interested. Yeah.
self-validate. Very few people self-validate. And so the other thing that you had that's really cool is you have a video, send this to your doctor, where it's explaining the benefits of carnivore, but at a really high level, which I'm not gonna lie, it was over my head. I'm pretty good at keeping up usually, but you were like way out there for me. So I did forward it to a doctor though.
Oh,
or
thank
two.
you. Yeah, my
Yeah,
favorite comment from that video was, "I'm a pharma MD. Thank you so much for making this video." That was my
oh,
favorite comment out there. I was so
that's such a
happy.
great compliment.
Because
Yeah,
the pharmacology people specifically, they know, they deal with these like chemicals all the time, so they know how this stuff could interact, like how side effects could be caused because of misuse of cell signaling. So these people,
right.
especially, they know, like they really have to know the biochemistry behind it. And I look at that and I'm like, that was by far my favorite comment, because I looked at that and I went, I delivered all the biochemistry needed. I not only delivered the biochemistry, I also explained some of the reasons as to why this biochemistry is so unbelievably important for any doctor to know, in my opinion, because any doctor should know this. Every time you're prescribing a statin, you're, in my opinion, that's like maltreatment. That's
I
completely,
agree,
that stuff is
100%.
killer. Yeah,
Well,
I
and they
mean,
go on and on about salt, how bad salt is, and it's like, well, table salt, but not like sea salt, or what. There's such a difference, and the doctors don't say that. They just assume you're going to be using table salt, so they're like, oh, it's horrible for you. And then I wonder if half the time if any of the doctors know. I know some of them do, but I'm still at it. I'm 2020, so we all know what I'm
yeah.
saying there. But thank you, and I'm going to email you a copy of that book on Audible, because I think you can gift them via email. So I will do that,
Okay.
and then whenever you're done with it, let me know, and we'll book you to come back, and then we'll just talk about that. And I want
Sure.
to get your opinion on it, and if that is just a short, like, nope, stupidest thing I've ever heard, then we'll go on to the whole what you think the future holds for the younger generation, and how you think a lot of the stuff is going to collapse, and
Oh,
yet other things are going to build up. I think that'd be a really good show.
yeah.
I might even see if my daughter and the Meat Mafia guys would come on with us. That'd be fun.
I would, yeah, I find that really cool. I would like to meet them. I'm just, oh man,
Yeah,
I'm really scared for the future generation, because they're, especially in America anyways, like the debt and all this stuff. I mean, oh, I don't
it's
want,
all gonna be right. There's always like I think our country is like really bad microbiome, and like there's a whole bunch of good bacteria like getting revved up through you and me and other people are gonna eat the bad bacteria. So I think it'll all balance out, but I do see what you're saying for sure.
yeah, I really hope it doesn't happen though. That's all I can say. Because there's also other outcomes that I could see happening, and they're definitely like not good. I really hope that doesn't happen, because if it goes down that path, and it's like, oh my God, all we're in is basically, I don't think it will though. I don't think it will. The science isn't that
Too
good.
many of us good people out here. We will at some point be like, okay, we've had enough. And so one thing other than YouTube, are you on any other social media? And then also, what is your future plan? Like, I know you're gonna go to med school. What's your goal with it all?
I'm honestly, the main point of going to med school is go to med school and then denounce all the doctors, try to get as much attention as I possibly can while denouncing every doctor. And in the process,
Oh,
hopefully,
you're my spirit
hopefully
animal.
stuff changes. I'm willing, like, I don't care too much about the license itself. I don't care about the thing that it
Right.
says I'm a doctor or MD at the end. All I care about is, like,
Sure.
one, people getting better. I don't want, 'cause it's just so much wasted money. I think that
Yeah.
if we really manage to just get this whole like symptom fixing stuff away, we're going to start living past 150, because we're going to eventually
Yeah.
start getting these doctors, all these people who originally did biology, like there's
Right.
so many of these fields that'll just, there's no reason to study them, or there's so much less incentive. And because of
Right.
that, that allows us to step more into a field of, okay, well, let's see if we can make like the process of oxidative phosphorylation more efficient. Let's see if we can produce
Yeah.
less reactive oxygen species, which could, in the process, end up increasing age. Let's see if we can make somehow, I don't know if this is even possible, Erythrocytes,
Why
red
not?
blood
Why not?
cells.
Good. What were you gonna say?
If we can make erythrocytes or red blood cells, only use fatty acid, like that's another really big, like if we could do a lot of these things, it'll most likely, this will decrease the rate of aging so much to the point, I don't know exactly how long people could end up living like 300, 400, 500 years, maybe 1,000 years, even longer, just from correct biochemistry. Right?
You better
So,
hurry up. Hurry up and graduate. I need the goods. I'm closing in on 60 here.
So yeah, that's the main part.
Please tell your parents thank you for sharing you with the world, and that we really and truly approve. You're amazing.
Thank you, Carmen. No, it's been a pleasure. If anytime.
All right. All right. Thanks everybody for being, and hopefully we'll be back with Blazed V sometime soon, depending on how quick he can read. Bye.
Bye.